Satisfaction. All the chemists and physicists were in the delusional world of satisfaction. Everyone was feeling so superior that there was nothing new left to be discovered now. The hot topic periodic table was almost filled, and nearly all the environmental phenomena were understood till then. Everyone was so into oblivion to the most unexpected surprise from the most unexpected person, a person with so much struggle and inspiration. That was the time when most of the world used to think that science was not the women's cup of tea, but the woman that we are going to talk about saying left the world in utter amazement would be an understatement. So, not getting much suspicious, let me tell you the woman that we are talking about is the first woman ever to be awarded with the Nobel Prize. A hard-working and determined woman who has inspired and still inspiring everyone, especially the female species on this planet.
Marie Curie was born as Maria Sklodowska on 7th November 1867 in Warsaw in Congress, Poland under Russian Empire. The situation of Poland during the time of Marie Curie did not come out to be in her favor. She was the fifth and youngest child of well-known teachers Bronislawa Boguska and Ladislava Sklodowska. During that time, Poland was ruled by Russia. Until its loss in World War I, the family had lost their property, job, and fortunes through patriotic involvements in Polish national uprisings aimed at restoring Poland's independence. This condemned the subsequent generation, including Mary and her elder siblings, to a difficult struggle to get ahead in life. Mary's family itself was devoted towards education. Her paternal grandfather had been principal of the Lublin Primary School. These were not the only problems faced by Mary. There is a big list ahead. Mary's mother operated a prestigious Warsaw boarding school for girls. She resigned from the position after Mary was born. She died of tuberculosis when Mary was 10 years old. Less than 3 years earlier, Mary's oldest sibling Zofia had died of typhus. When she was 10 years old, Mary began attending the boarding school of J. Sikorska. Next, she attended a gymnasium for girls, from which she graduated on 12th June 1883 with a gold medal.
Her very own existence, that is being a woman, also became an obstacle in the path of her dreams. But instead of feeling defeated or getting weaker, she moved forward with more determination, hopes, and many dreams. Unable to enroll in a regular institution of higher education because she was a woman, she and her sister Bronislawa became involved with the Clandestine Flying University, a Polish patriotic institution of higher learning that admitted women students. She lost some opportunities in her life because of being a woman and some because of financial instability, but her passion never died. All that time, she continued to educate herself, reading books, exchanging letters, and being tutoring her. In early 1889, she returned home to her father in Warsaw. During 1890 to 1891, she tutored, studied at the Flying University, and began her practical scientific training in a chemical laboratory at the Museum of Industry and Agriculture.
This was the early phase of her life. Now she was going to start another important phase with higher education and many more. In late 1891, she left Poland for France. In Paris, Mary briefly found shelter with her sister and brother-in-law before renting a garret closer to the university in the Latin Quarter and proceeding with her studies of physics, chemistry, and mathematics at the University of Paris. She focused so hard on her studies that she sometimes forgot to eat. In 1893, she was awarded a degree in physics and began work in an industrial laboratory of Gabriel Lippmann. Meanwhile, she continued study at the University of Paris, and with the aid of a fellowship, she was able to earn a second degree in 1894.
Marie had begun her scientific career in Paris with an investigation of the magnetic properties of various steels, commissioned by the Society for Encouragement of National Industry. During this time, Pericuri entered her life. It was their mutual interest in natural sciences that drew them together. Pericuri was an instructor at the City of Paris Industrial Physics and Chemistry higher educational institution. Their mutual passion for science brought them increasingly closer and they began to develop feelings for one another. Eventually, Perry proposed marriage, but at first, Mary did not accept as she was still planning to go back to her native country. Curie, however, declared that he was even ready to move with her to Poland, even if it meant being reduced to teaching French.
Mary was a focused and diligent student and was at the top of her class. In recognition of her talents, she was awarded the Alexandrovich Scholarship for Polish students studying abroad. The scholarship helped Mary pay for the classes needed to complete her degrees in physics and mathematical sciences in 1894. Now turning to the scientific discovery of Mary, in 1894, William Röntgen had discovered mysterious X-rays which could capture photographs of human bones beneath the skin and the muscle. The following year, Henry Becquerel had discovered that the rays emitted by uranium could pass through metal, but Becquerel's rays were not X-rays. Mary decided to investigate the rays from uranium. This was a new and very exciting field to work in. Discoveries came to her very thick and fast. She discovered that four main things.
Uranium rays electrically charge the air they pass through. Such air can conduct electricity. Mary detected this using an electrometer that Perry and his brother invented. The number of rays coming from uranium depends only on the amount of uranium present, not the chemical form of the uranium. From this, she theorized correctly that the rays came from within the uranium atoms and not from a chemical reaction. The uranium minerals, pitchblende and torbernite, have more of an effect on the conductivity of air than pure uranium does. She theorized correctly that these minerals must contain another chemical element more active than uranium. The chemical element thorium emits rays in the same way as uranium does. Now, coming to the discovery of polonium and radium, Mary's research had revealed that two uranium ores, pitchblende and chalcolite, were much more radioactive than pure uranium itself.
She concluded that the highly radioactive nature of these ores might be due to one or more additional, as yet undiscovered, radioactive elements. Perry puts aside his research on crystals to help expedite Marie's discovery of the possible new elements. They worked as a team, taking each on specific scientific task. As it is said, the strength of the team is individual member and the strength of each member is the team. They proved.
Pitchblende is a highly complex mineral made of combinations of up to 30 different elements to isolate the unknown substances of which only tiny amounts were present. The Curies were the first to use new method of chemical analysis. They employed various standard chemical procedures to separate the different substances in pitchblende. Making repeated separations of the various substances in the pitchblende, Mary and Perry used the Curie electrometer to identify the most radioactive fractions. They thus discovered that two fractions, one containing mostly bismuth and the other containing mostly barium, were strongly radioactive. In July 1898, the Curies published their conclusion. The bismuth fraction contained a new element. Chemically, it acted almost exactly like bismuth, but since it was radioactive, it has to be something new. They named it polonium in honor of the country of Marie's birth. A second publication in December 1898 explained their discovery in the barium fraction of another new element, which they named radium, from the Latin word for ray. The Curies were close to reaching one of the highest goals that a scientist of the time could hope to achieve, placing new elements in the periodic table. In a Victorian era where academic opportunities for women were very limited, Marie Curie actually studies in secret as it was nearly impossible to be accepted in an academic world that belonged to men. She was the first woman to do a PhD from French University.
Marie Curie was not really nominated for her first Nobel Prize. In 1903, the French Academy of Sciences nominated Henri Becquerel and Perry, but not Marie Curie, as the candidate for the Physics Prize, if not for the intervention of Magnus Gustav Mytag-Leffler, member of the nominating committee and Swedish mathematician. Mary might have been denied recognition for her work. Mytag-Leffler, an advocate of women scientists, wrote Perry advising him of the situation. In his reply, Perry made clear that a Nobel Prize for research in radioactivity that failed to acknowledge Mary's pivotal role would be a travesty. Some strings were pulled, and a nomination of Marie Curie in 1902 was validated for 1903 Nobel Prize. Both Curies were awarded half of the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their study into the spontaneous radiation discovered by Henri Becquerel, who was awarded the other half of the prize. Marie was the first woman to become a Nobel laureate.
The sudden death of her husband Pericuri was a bitter blow to Marie Curie, but it was also a decisive turning point in her career. Henceforth, the Nobel laureate was to devote all her energy to completing alone the scientific work they had undertaken. The Nobel laureate was awarded another Nobel Prize in Chemistry 1911 in recognition of her services to the advancement of chemistry by the discovery of the elements radium and polonium, by the isolation of radium and the study of nature and compounds of this remarkable element.
Curie visited Poland for the last time in early 1934. A few months later, on 4th July 1934, the famed scientist known as the mother of modern physics died from aplastic anemia, believed to have been contracted from her long-term exposure to radiation. Marie had carried test tubes containing radioactive isotopes in her pocket, and she stored them in her desk drawer, remarking on the faint light that the substances gave off in the dark. Despite her many decades of exposure to radiation, caused chronic illness including near blindness due to cataracts and ultimately her death. She never really acknowledged the health risk of radiation exposure.
Pericuri and Marie Curie were the first couple to share a Nobel Prize together. Marie Curie was the only person to be awarded a Nobel in two different scientific categories and till date is the first woman to claim Nobel honors twice. Several educational and research institutions and medical centers bear the Curie name, including the Curie Institute and Perry and Marie Curie University. Curie made many breakthroughs in her lifetime, remembered as a leading figure in science and a role model for women. She received numerous posthumous honors.
Madame Curie's journey in science field was no cakewalk, but now it seems like the world has actually started giving real opportunities to women, because recently in 2020, Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to women. Manuel Charpentier and Jennifer A. Doudna developed a method for genome editing and received the Nobel Prize for their outstanding and groundbreaking work. Every young girl gets motivation to let her mind wander and the urge to be her best whenever they hear about such great women. Curie rightly said, "We must have perseverance and above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something and that this thing must be attained.